Hello, Wired fam. How's everybody doing this evening? Hope everybody's doing well. Who all came and clicked on this live show last week and then sit there and realized that it wasn't until this week? Raise your hands. I apologize about last week, guys. Had some things come up and was unable to make it. And for those that probably looked at the live and went, oh, that's going to be a good one tonight, and then looked at it when it came time to have the live and went, wait, it says next week. Yes, I changed it. I had some things come up and was not able to get home in time. So I apologize for last week. But, hey, we are here back this week and ready to rock and roll. So I appreciate everybody joining. Hopefully everybody came back this week and didn't get mad at me last week. Let's see here. Guys, as always, when you get on, drop me a hello, leave me a comment. I always like to know who's on, where you're from. I always like to say hello to you guys. So when you guys get on, make sure you say hello to me if you don't care. I hope everybody had a good week. Hope you guys got to go fishing last weekend. I went last weekend for a short trip. Caught a lot of fish, but we're going to talk a little bit about some of the videos that are coming up here in just a little bit. So the main topic for tonight is line, guys. I really want to talk about line. There has just, over the last year, there's been a real large shift in line for crappie fishing. So I wanted to talk about that, kind of walk through all that. We'll do that here in just a little bit too. And then we're going to talk about the videos coming up for the next month or so as well. If you have not subscribed to the channel, please subscribe to the channel. We are doing a 10,000 subscriber giveaway. I will be picking one, well, not I personally, but a random calculator or a random drawer will draw one subscriber from the channel when we get to 10,000, and that one subscriber will win a weekend fishing trip with me, 2 different lakes in East Tennessee. So don't miss out on that, guys. Please, please, please hit that subscribe button so that you get entered into that drawing, okay? Let's see who all is on this evening. Chris Carter, what's up, Chris? Andy Perry says, hello, Wired fam. I got my notebook ready for tonight. Been ready for this one all week. Good. You better sharpen that pencil because we're going to go through a lot of good stuff with line tonight. I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be a lot of fun. Guys, if you have questions about lines, specific lines, I've used a lot of different lines in my day. Hadn't used them all, but I've used a lot of different ones. So if you have any questions, please put those in the comments. I love answering questions. That's what this is for you guys to answer or ask questions to me, okay? And get that notebook out. Right, Andy? All right, Solomon says, hey, Matt from Roanoke Rapids, North Carolina. What's going on, Solomon? Jimmy Pratt, hello, hello. Ashley Coffee, what's up? Jamie Nelson, hello. Let's see, just a minute. Let me stop what I'm doing. Mr. Jamie Nelson caught his personal best this week at Kentucky Lake. Check that slab out, guys. That is a giant. So his slab was just under 2 pounds, is 1 pound, 14 ounces. And then that was his personal best. And then his son caught his personal best, I believe same trip, right behind him. The son's always got to show us up, right? He caught his personal best right there. So congratulations to them. I believe he said that one was 2 pounds, 14 ounces. So almost 3-pounder. Congratulations. Those are great fish. Heck of a trip for sure. New PBs. PBs getting broken all over the place, guys. So congratulations, Jamie, on that. Josh, hello, hello. Another personal best from Mr. Josh. I got a message from him. with a 1.85 pounder. Check that out. Almost 2 pound slab from Josh. New personal best from him or for him. Congratulations, buddy. That's a great fish. Andy said he came last week. Daryl from Whitwell, what's going on? RPB from Concord, North Carolina, what's going on, buddy? Addicted to Hunting, hello from Louisiana. Todd Pell says hello. Stephen Webb, what's going on, Stephen? Crappie Kev, Jody Gazaway, hello. Misty Martin from Crappie Cove, guys. Everybody say hi, Misty. Welcome, guys. The discount codes run across the bottom of the screen. 10% off at Crappie Cove with Misty. They now have the website up, guys. The website is running, crappiecove.com. You can save 10% on the website now with the discount code Wired as well, okay? So go get all your good products there, your bonehead jigs, your crappie magnets, your ACC crappie sticks, your B&M rods, your Ozark rods. They've got Jiffy jigs. They've got, man, it's just endless. If you have not seen everything that's in Crappie Cove, go to my page after this. There's a video on my YouTube channel that has a video with everything in Crappie Cove, Bubba knives. It's got all the stuff for you guys to check out. Really, really cool stuff. And it's on the website too, so you can go check that out now. Karen H. says, hey, Matt, Karen and Dan H. Instead of from Chicago as usual, today from Truman Lake, Missouri for crappie spawn for next 2 weeks. Man, that is awesome. I hope you guys wear them out there. Truman is a great lake. It's on fire this year. I've heard of a lot of good things coming out of Truman. So Curtis Hobbs, Mr. Lightwire Hooks right down here. Look right here. Curtis Hobbs, hey, Matt, checking in from Cochran, Georgia. What's going on, Curtis? Guys, if you have not heard of Mr. Curtis Hobbs, he is Mr. Lightwire Hooks. You can check him out online as well, and he also has Facebook, so you can check him out there. But great hooks, great guy. Always been a pleasure ordering hooks from Mr. Curtis. Ron Hall, hello. Johnny Coots, what's going on? William C., good evening. Robert Love, hello. Randy Brim from Illinois, what's going on, Randy? Bo Simpson checking in from work. All right, Bo, I hear you. Don't get caught at work watching Wired for Crappie. And if you do, make sure they watch Wired for Crappie with you, okay? Get some other people addicted. Heath McDaniel, good evening. Jody Gazaway says, hit the like button. Woohoo. Guys, smash that like button, please, while you're here. David Bender from Friendsville. What's going on, David? Tom Harris. Hello. From Blairsville, Georgia. Lake Nottely. And Nathan Wood. Hey, Nathan. How's it going, buddy? Wabash, Indiana. Wabash. I like saying that, so we're going to say it again. Hello from Wabash. All right, guys. So let's talk a little bit about what we're going to see over the – I just had a bunch of comments come in. Jeff Lose, hello. Had to break away from Big Joe talking tonight. Glad you are on instead. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. We're going to leave that one alone, but thank you very much. Stephen Webb says, I use braid mainline tied leader with FG knot with clear mono leader line bonehead plastics. Andrew Alonzo, yeah, glad you're back. What's up, everybody? Thank you, Andrew. So, yeah, guys, again, since we have more people on, I apologize about last week. I had some things come up, was not able to get home before the live started, so I apologize for that. It really caught me off guard. It was kind of a last-minute thing, and I was unable to really put a release out there and tell you guys that I wasn't going to make it. So I do apologize for last week. I did not want to miss, but unfortunately, some circumstances came up, and I had to. So, but thank you very much. I'm glad y'all are back this week, and we're going to talk about line. But first, let's talk a little bit about what we're going to do for the next probably month, maybe even 2 months. So we're going to pull it back a little bit. The videos are going to get pulled back a little as far as new technology. New technology is great, guys. I love the new technology. Absolutely just stellar technology, without a shadow of a doubt. It's probably one of the best things to ever happen to crappie fishing is the new technology, just because it's got so many more people involved in the sport, so many more people energized to go fishing again. So hang on just one second. Stephen Webb, thank you, Stephen, for the super chat, buddy. I appreciate it. Guys, if you don't know what a super chat is, right down below your comment section, there's a little dollar symbol. You can click on that. It will walk you through how to give a super chat. That goes directly to Wired for Crappie to help keep me on the water, making great content for you guys to watch every single week. So it's no secret that with rising gas prices and oil, and of course I run a two-stroke, so I have oil in my boat still. Everything that is YouTube, cameras, equipment, all that good business, these things right here, it costs money to go video for you guys, time and money. Everything that comes in goes right back into crappie fishing, making videos for you guys. I appreciate it, Stephen. Thank you. It's a blessing, and I don't take it lightly. Thank you for your blessing, Stephen. I appreciate it, buddy. Andrew says, yeah, I'm watching from work also. Priorities, buddy. Terry Gear, hello. So again, back to my original comment, the new technology in crappie fishing is awesome. It really is, okay? But it is not the end-all be-all in crappie fishing. It is not you have to have the new technology to catch fish, okay? So we're going to pull it off the new technology for a little bit. We're going to go back to fishing pre-live scope. We're going to do some new stuff. Well, not new stuff. We're going to do some old school stuff, and we're going to show you guys ways to catch fish without the live scope. And then if and when you guys get live scope or have live scope, it just elevates your game that much more. Okay. But we're going to pull it back. We're going to get back to some old school stuff. Some of the stuff that I loved to do when I first started crappie fishing, trolling, slip floating minnows, casting brush piles, shooting docks, all that stuff without a live scope, where we're not sitting there just staring at a screen and catching fish. We're going to go catch fish old school. We're going to take it back. We should call this the 1980s model. All right. We're going to call this the 1980s, chapter. We'll call it chapter. All right. So everybody cool with that? Everybody cool with going back and doing some old cool stuff or some old school stuff, learning how I guess kind of me teaching how I progressed in crappie fishing, right? So I started out in my crappie fishing with long lining. That is the way I cut my teeth crappie fishing. I mean, I started out long lining. I had an old guy I went turkey hunting one day, and this old guy was sitting there. I've told you guys the story, and he was catching crappie out of a tree on the bank, and I went home and I grabbed a rod and some floaters and went back and caught crappie right beside him or with him. And we had a conversation, and he said, yeah, you'll catch them here for a week and you'll never catch them again. And he was right. We caught them there for a week, never caught them again. And then he said, you got to start long lining. And I started looking that up, and it was uphill from there. All right. So we're going to do it. I really like to do those techniques. I really like to troll and to pull planer boards and to slip float and do all those fun stuff, float and fly. And I mean, we'll teach some new stuff, not necessarily new technology, but new stuff, right? So watch out for those videos coming the next month or two. It's going to be a lot of fun. And yeah, so I hope you guys enjoy it. I know I will, because a change of pace is going to be really, really cool for me. I'm looking forward to it for sure. All right, so let's see. William says, the William C. way, fish with what I got. That's right. I am for it for sure. Down for learning new stuff. Jimmy says, let's see, what does Jimmy say? You go old school all you want. You're not getting my live scope. I don't want your live scope, Jimmy, but I'm going to teach you how to catch fish if that live scope craps out or your battery dies. Okay. So we'll see. Larry McBride, I'm thinking old school meant back in the 60s. Lots of well, old school for me is back in the 80s, okay? I'm sorry. I've told you guys before how old I am. I ain't telling you again. But no, old school for me is in the 80s and 90s, right? Yeah, that's old school. Saved by the Bell years, right? Anybody remember Saved by the Bell? Good show. Good show. All right. So let's talk about fishing line. Let's talk about the reason that we're here tonight. And there's so many different types of fishing line, guys, right? There's and colors. I mean, my gosh, colors are endless now. I mean, you can get pinks and blues and greens and reds and whites and yellows and good Lord, it's like camos. Man, camo fishing line now. It's like, really? Okay. So let's talk about the three main, okay, there's more than this, but the three main types of line. All right. One is fluorocarbon. Okay. So fluorocarbon. We got mono, just straight monofilament. Everybody knows I'm a Vicious fan. I do like Vicious line, but mono, okay. High vis, that's another thing. We'll talk about that in a minute. And then braid. All right. So those are the three types of line. So you've got mono, fluoro, and braid. Okay. Let's see what you guys got over here. Jimmy said old school for him is dynamite. Mark says, Matt, I'm wired for crappie today. 220 volts. Could not find any P-line 10-pound braid. Had to suffer with Bass Pro Premium XL. Have you ever used it? And just how did you like it? Actually, I have used it. And you know, we'll talk about it here in a little bit, but I've used several different braids, and I can't really see a huge difference in them, to be honest with you. Braided line. Well, we'll get into braid here in just a minute, but let's start out with what most all of your crappie fishermen for years and years, pre 2 years ago. Well, call it 5. Pre 5 years ago. Most all of your crappie fishermen use a monofilament line. That's what most guys use. Now, why is that? Why do most fishermen use a monofilament line? I think for multiple reasons, and this is all personal opinion, guys. Okay, this is going to be a whole show of personal opinion, so don't jump me too bad. But mono is cheap. All right, you can get monofilament line. This spool right here, this is Vicious. Okay, 4-pound test, high vis yellow. All right, this is 2,960 yards. You can see it on the label. 2,960 yards. 3 feet in a yard. So you do the math. Let's call it 3,000 yards. That's 9,000 feet of line, roughly. Rough numbers. We're going to round it up. $7. And it's actually, I think, went up to $8, but nonetheless. Okay. $8 for 9,000 feet of line. That's pretty good, right? That's cheap. Right. So mono's cheap. You can get it just about anywhere. All right. High vis, clear, green, blue. I mean, you've got red. The Cajun line is red. It's a mono. You got Mr. Crappie Camo, which we talked about just a minute ago. Camo line. I'm not sure why, but okay. But it's cheap. All right. Now, the next one, as far as expensiveness, would be your fluorocarbon. All right. Your fluorocarbon's more than your mono, but in most instances, cheaper than your braid. All right. So fluorocarbon kind of lands you in the middle, all right, as far as cost is concerned. And then your braid is probably your most expensive line. Now, with that, okay, let's go back. Let's talk about memory. Cheapest, mono, most memory. You're going to get the most memory out of a monofilament fishing line. All right. Next, as far as memory, is your fluoro. It's not going to have as much memory as a mono does, but it's going to have some. Okay. Your braid is memoryless. You're not going to have to worry about memory with braided line. All right. So again, kind of cheaper, more memory, more expensive, less memory. All right. Now let's talk about sensitivity. Sensitivity. Can you feel the bite, or how much of the bite will you feel? Mono is going to be your least sensitive, cheapest, least sensitive. Okay. Your fluorocarbon, again, falls kind of right there in the middle. All right. And then your braid is your most sensitive line. You're going to feel everything on braid. I mean, everything. If a boat goes by and wakes you, you will feel the wake when when it goes by your line. It is that sensitive. Okay. I've been very, very, very impressed with braided line since I started using it with the sensitivity side of it. Extremely, extremely, extremely impressed with the sensitivity of braid. Now, let's talk about castability. All right. Castability with these lines is kind of in a reverse order. So most expensive, not the best casting. All right. You really, if you put braided line on and you go to the lake, that first cast will make you cuss. You have to get that line wet. It works better when it's wet. I will say that. And it casts decent. You guys know I like to pitch. I like to cast. Braided line will hinder that castability or that with a light jig. Now, if you're throwing a 1/4 ounce jig, you won't have any problems. But for me, I like a light a jig as I can get away with. I like a 16th ounce jig, a 32nd ounce jig. And a lot of times braid doesn't like those light weights, okay? But I get away with it. For the sensitivity of it, I don't mind it, right? It's not so bad to cast that the sensitivity is not a higher pro than con. Let's say that. The sensitivity of it is a higher pro than the con of not really being able to cast it great, okay? Fluoro. I have spooled reels with straight fluoro. This is a K9 high vis fluoro, low memory, 4-pound test again. I have spooled reels with this straight fluoro, and I'm not going to say I don't like it. The castability is so, but I don't like the way that it bites into itself. So with this line, it actually, if you hook a fish and you reel a fish in, you have to make a cast to get it to unbind because it actually will bite into itself on the spool. And it could be because it's a 4-pound test. I did not experiment with it in a higher pound test line, but I mean, just on the spool, you can see, just here on the spool, you can see where it kind of bites into itself. And I'm not a big fan of that. So castability, again, middle of the road. Okay, fluoro's kind of middle of the road, but mono for castability is where it's at. If you're shooting docks or you're, making big casts to brush piles or to open water fish or something, mono is still the best casting line in my opinion. Again, I like a 4-pound test, but that's something else that has changed, guys. And we're going to talk about the things that have changed here in just a minute, but I kind of want to go over the properties of each one of the lines first. So crappie it's always been believed that crappie are not line sensitive. All right. The thing that I have noticed with braid versus a fluorocarbon, okay, and the fluorocarbon that I leader with on my braid is the Vicious 100% fluorocarbon, and that is clear. And you guys can see that's an 8-pound test, so I use a 6 or an 8. And I'll explain why here in a minute. But I do use a clear fluorocarbon to leader my braid. Several reasons that I do that. Okay. The reason that I like to leader my braid is because, one, braid has absolutely no shock. And that's what we're going to talk about next is stretch. There is no stretch in this braided line. Zero, zilch, nada. If you set the hook on a 2-pound crappie and you do not have a hold of your rod very well, it will hurt your wrist because there is no give to this line at all. If you've never fished with braid, one day you need to try it because you will see if you go fish with braid, guys, for 4 hours. Just go 4 hours, fish with braid. Catch 15 or 20 fish, okay? Just fish for a few hours, catch 15 or 20 fish, however long that takes with braid, and then pick up mono and go catch 15 or 20 fish. When you set the hook after using braid, okay, you set the hook with mono, and it will feel like you just set the hook with a rubber band, literally. So zero stretch in this line. It will not give. All right, fluorocarbon, again, is middle of the road. It has some stretch, but not nearly as much stretch as mono. Mono has more stretch than all three. Okay, so again, cheaper line, more stretch. Some guys like that stretch. Some guys like to have that give, and that's a reason that I leader with fluoro, and I'll actually leader with 4 or 5 feet of fluorocarbon to my braid because I do want to have a little bit of give when I set the hook on that fish. 75% of the time you're hitting them in the roof of the mouth, or I hit them in the roof of the mouth. But that other 25%, when I hit them in the bottom of the mouth or the sides and the cheeks, I want to have a little bit of give because I do have a pretty good hook set. You guys have seen my hook sets. I do get on them pretty good with that ACC crappie stick. I let them eat, or I let the hook ride. I mean, I let it all ride, right? So I want to have a little bit of give. That way I don't rip one's cheek off. Okay. So, and you will with braid, I'm telling you. When I first started fishing braid, I told you guys I would give you a review. This is kind of what that is. I kind of wanted to go give it a good long shot before I started saying anything. Hang on one second. I'm going to catch up on my comments, I promise. Nathan Wood, thank you for the super chat, Nathan. I appreciate it, buddy. That is a blessing to me. Again, guys, if you don't know how to give a super chat, right down below the comment section, there's a little dollar symbol. That goes to help this channel. That goes to help keep me on the lake making good content for you guys. So if you hadn't ever given a super chat and you would like to, it's very simple. You click on that little dollar sign. YouTube will walk you through everything. Thank you, Nathan. I appreciate it. Thank you for the blessing. It will go back towards crappie fishing and making great content. Thank you. All right, so where were we? Yes, I like to leader my braid, okay? So let me tell you this story, just a quick story about braided line. I actually, when I made the switch to braid, my fishing partner still is a mono guy. He still fishes with mono pretty much religiously, okay? He will use the K9 fluorocarbon high vis. He does use that some, but for the most part, he's mono still. He just likes the mono. He's one of the guys that likes mono, and there's nothing wrong with that. If you like mono, that's great. But I will say this. So in the last couple tournaments, there's been a time or two where he has lost several fish. We don't know how big they were, obviously. Hook sets just didn't. Fish would strike when he was kind of at an odd angle, and he'd go to set the hook and wouldn't really get a good hook set on a fish. If you don't get a good hook set on a fish with mono, with all the stretch, especially if you're making long casts, those little short pitches, you can make a good hook set. You've only got 10, 15 foot of line out or whatever. You can get a good hook set on fish with that, with mono. But if you're making those 35 or 40 foot casts to open water fish, and they're striking and you're trying to set the hook with 50 feet of line out, mono has got a ton of stretch. It's hard to make up all that ground of stretch with a 6 or 7 foot rod. Maybe with a 10-foot rod, you could get enough of the swing with that 10-foot rod to make up that stretch, but it's tough that far out with the monofilament line with that much stretch in it. So I will say over the last few tournaments, it's been kind of one of them things where I've kind of looked at him and said, hey, I'm buttoning him up pretty good with that braid. And, he's noticed it too. I mean, it's not like, when two good anglers get in a boat together, they notice things, right? They notice what's working, what's not. But that is an advantage to braid. There's no stretch, and you can hit those long fish that are out there 30 feet in front of you. You can set the hook on those fish and get a really solid, good hook set, drive that hook home, and get that fish back to the boat. So that is another positive of braid. But again, it is the most expensive line. So, there's trade-offs. Right, and you got to decide where you're at and what the trade-off is, what the pros are compared to the cons, and you've got to make your decision on what line you're going to use. Now, that's casting. Let's talk a little bit about trolling. So I'm still a believer in, if I'm trolling, I'm still 100% mono. If I'm trolling, I've got a lot of line out behind the boat. I'm breaking off a lot because I'm hanging up on brush. I'm hanging up on stumps. I'm hanging up on the bottom. I'm hanging, when you're trolling all the time, you're getting hung and breaking off. So I like a mono when I troll, mostly because it's a cheaper line. And I like to have that stretch when I'm trolling, because a lot of times I'm not paying attention and a fish gets on and I'm dragging him behind the boat. And I like to have that stretch in there where that fish isn't just getting completely hammered and drug. I mean, that fish can work that rod, work that line, and he's not getting just hammered by the boat, right? And I also like it because when you get hung, it gives you a little bit of stretch to get the rod out of the rod holder. I trolled last week, and I did have braid on a couple rods, and I got hung on those rods, and it was a nightmare because I couldn't get the rod out of the rod holder, and I had to reach down and flip the bail open. It's kind of a nightmare. So I still do like mono when I'm trolling. Okay. I do like a high vis line. I always like to be able to see where my line is. A lot of guys don't like high vis. They like a clear or a blue or a green or something of that nature to kind of match their water. But I love high vis line. And why do I love high vis line? Is because I can see it. I mean, I can look out there and I can say, okay, that line's going that way. That line's going that way. I mean, if I'm trolling again and I have to make a cast in between two lines, I can see those lines, make a cast out there, put my rod in the rod holder. I like it when I'm shooting docks because I can see that line underneath the dock very well. A lot of times that fish will hit on the fall, and you'll just see the line jump. It almost like the line jumps off the water, and that's if they really hammer it. A lot of times when you shoot under a dock, you've got a sway in your line from the tip of your rod to the water. You've got a sway, okay, or a swag in your line. A lot of times that when people say watch your line, they're not watching the line on the water. They're watching that swag, okay? That swag will jump. If a fish hits that bait on the fall, you'll see that swag jump a little, and that tells you, hey, a fish just struck a jig. So having high vis line is extremely, extremely important in those situations to where you can see it, okay? I do wear glasses. You guys have seen me in glasses, but I don't like to wear glasses. So a lot of times, I'll tell you a real quick story again. My partner and I were fishing a tournament, and he told me before the tournament, he's like, we're going to go float and fly. He said, I'm catching them on float and fly. I'm catching a lot of fish. This was pre-live scope. He says, we're going to go float and fly. I was like, cool, let's go. So we go float and fly, and I left my glasses at home, and he's literally telling me, set the hook, set the hook, set the hook. Because my float would just raise up in the water a little bit. I couldn't see it because it was out there 25 or 30 feet in front of me. And he literally had to tell me to set the hook all day long. And he's like, I'm not telling you anymore. He said, I'm over it. He said, you need to do something. You don't bring your glasses next time, I'm leaving you at the dock. I was like, okay. So anyway, there's Pros, cons, gives, takes. Just have to figure out what's best for you guys. Let's see. What are you guys saying? Because I'm way behind on comments. Heidi Clark says, I'm totally bumfuddled by fishing lines. So hopefully this is going to help. If you have questions, Heidi, please ask them because I want to answer them, okay? So if you're befuddled, right, ask me a question. Let me help you. Andrew says, interested in planer boards and how to use them. Then, Andrew, you need to watch my video coming out Friday. And I ain't saying no more because I'm giving away too much already. But watch my video. Chris Jackson, what do you think about K9 braid? So I have used K9 braid. I have some right here. You guys have probably seen that video, maybe. I don't know. But that is the pink K9 braid. I wanted it because it's pink. And I thought, well, I'll be able to see that really good. Wrong. That pink line in our water, well, you can see it right here. Look at that. It almost disappears. I don't know why, but it does. So I thought, man, that's going to be really cool. I'll be able to see that like nobody's business on blue-green water. Nope. It was hard to see. I think it's the sun, the way the sun, it soaks the sun in or something. I don't know, but anyway, good, great line. Nothing, absolutely nothing bad to say about K9 braid, okay? Now, I will say this again. I use the bonehead braid religiously. That is the B-Power. I use it in orange, Rocky Top, green, Rocky Top, okay, green hat on. Rocky Top orange, okay? It looks really good on those green rods. I can tell you that. That orange line, the green rods look really good. Wired orange, I'm just saying. All right, so I will say that I can't tell the difference, Chris, in a bonehead braid or a K9 braid. There's no castability difference. There's no as far as usability or castability or sensitivity. I mean, I can't tell the difference anywhere in those realms, okay, between the two. So I can't say it's a bad product because I like it and I'll use it, but it's kind of comes down to price point. I think at that point, you know, where the price is at on them and how much line I get for that cost. So that's kind of one thing you have to look at, guys, when you're looking at braid is you might find like a bonehead braid. This is a 500-yard spool. They also have a 200-yard spool or 150-yard. I think it's 150-yard spool. I buy the 500-yard spools, but they have them in 150s, I think. Always, always, always look at how much line you're getting for that price. So let's say this is $20 and this is $14.99. This right here is 150 yards. All right. So always, always, always look at how many yards you're getting for that cost. And if you want to see which one you're getting a better value with, it's, you know, grocery math. Take the total cost, divide it by how many yards you get, and you got per yard. And then you can kind of, you know, figure out which one's better for you, right? That's grocery math 101. Weight divided by, or cost divided by weight, right? So let's see. Jamie Nelson, it is hard to find high-vis braid here. Had to settle for green, hard to see. Jamie, CrappieCove.com. You can pick up all these lines that I'm showing you tonight, guys, at Crappie Cove. They've got K9 high-vis fluoro. They've got K9 pink braids, yellow braids. They've got bonehead braid. They've even got vicious monofilament. So you can get all these lines I'm showing you tonight at Crappie Cove, okay? CrappieCove.com. Stephen, good evening, sir. He said he was early last week. I'm sorry. I couldn't make it last week. I apologize. I couldn't get home in time, and I had to reschedule for this week. So I'm sorry again, guys. Please, please forgive me. Brad Nelson from Moore, Oklahoma. What's going on? Hello, Wired fam. Hello, Brad. Glad you're with us. Oh, Mr. Scott Bunch. What's up, Scott? I really like the Ardent Gliss, a lot smoother casting than braid, unless it's below freezing and it really picks bad. Do not use below freezing. It freezes bad. So I have not used the Ardent Gliss. I actually have some Ardent Gliss, but I have not used it. Okay, it's almost like a dental floss, and correct me if I'm wrong, Scott, but it's almost like a dental floss type material, but it is strong. And yes, below freezing, even braid below freezing will make you scream. So Scott and I, we fished with East Tennessee Crappie Club on Cherokee, and it was below freezing that morning, and we both came back to the weigh-in and were like, I was ready to throw my rod in the lake by about 9 o'clock because we started fishing at 7:30, and by 9, what you had to do is every cast you had to reel in, and then you had to stick your rod down in the lake because the eyes would completely ice over just in the time that you reeled in your line. I mean, as long as you kept your line moving, it would come through the eyes. But as soon as you got your rod, as soon as you got your bait back and you went to make another cast, it would freeze your rod. It was that cold. So you had to stick your rod down the lake and let the ice melt off of it because the water was not below freezing. So it was a nightmare. Those metal stainless eyes were just freezing. It would freeze every time. So yeah, I was ready to go. And Scott said the same thing. But I think the thing that happened was that Ardent Gliss that did not happen with braid. Yes, the braid would freeze up, but the Ardent Gliss, the ice would almost kind of fray or kind of cut it. If I remember, were you saying that correctly, Scott? So yeah, don't use it below freezing, but Scott likes it. It's a good line, and I've used it. It does seem smoother because it's got that again, that dental floss type material. So I need to use it some. I really do. That's one that I can't really talk to a whole lot, but I hear it is good. William C. says, I've been playing with 20-pound braid line to help with the line wrapping up on the end of the rod tip, and so far it's working good. So yeah, that's another thing we're going to talk about here in just a minute. I'm going to go through some more comments here real quick, but we're going to talk about the shift in line and the shift in crappie fishing with line over the last several years. Again, like I said earlier, this is pretty much what every crappie fisherman ran for the longest time is mono. Crappie fishing was kind of known, especially when I started East Tennessee Crappie Club back 8 years ago. Crappie fishing was kind of known as the poor man's fishing, right? I guess. And that's not a knock on crappie fishing. That's just saying, bass was where the money was at. Bass was where everybody went when they spent a bunch of money. And crappie fishing was for the guy that just wanted to go have fun and go fish. And it's still that way. I mean, you don't have to have a bunch of expensive stuff to go catch crappie. And that's kind of why we're pulling back and punting. And we're going to do some shows that show you don't have to have all these electronics and all this stuff to catch crappie and have a successful day on the water and have fun on the water. But there's been a shift. There's been a little bit of a shift in crappie fishing over the last few years. And you're starting to see a lot of these other lines and a lot of these higher poundages and stuff like that. So we'll talk a little bit about that here in just a little bit. Crappie Kev, I use a 2-pound diameter braid and it casts pretty good. Like I said, Crappie Kev, the con of castability with braid, the pro of sensitivity outweighs that without a shadow of a doubt. I'm not saying it won't cast. I'm saying it just doesn't cast as good as a mono. No way, shape, form, or fashion. Shooting docks with let's take it like this. I can shoot a 32nd ounce jig probably. I'm not going to Wally Marshall this thing because he says 70 feet. I don't believe that. But I can probably get 50 to 60 feet out of a mono with a 32nd ounce jig. I probably only get about 40 to 45 feet out of a braid because it just doesn't come off the spool as smooth. Okay. So when I say castability is less, it is less. You can cast with braid, okay, but it's less than mono, right? So that's where I was coming from with that. Now, let's talk a little bit because you brought up the diameter. Let's talk about diameter real quick. So a 4-pound test mono Okay, the diameter of that, you can see it right there, 0.007 inches. Okay, is your average diameter for a 4-pound test mono. All right. Where's it at? I don't have it on here. Oh, yeah, I do. Da-da-da-da. All right, let's do millimeters because it's millimeters on here. So let's do millimeters. So the millimeter size of that 4-pound test right here, okay, is 0.18 millimeters on a 4-pound test mono. 0.18, okay. On a 12-pound braid, it is a 0.14 millimeter. All right. So what's that mean? This line is smaller in diameter than this line, but 3 times the strength. 12 pounds, 0.14. 4 pounds, 0.18. All right. Smaller diameter, 3 times the strength. All right. So thank you very much, Crappie Kev, for reminding to point that or pointing that out to me that I didn't mention that. But and as far as the fluoro goes, again, it's kind of middle of the road, guys. So if you look right here, this is a 4-pound test. All right. So diameter of a 4-pound is 0.165. So kind of middle of the road again. So if you guys are kind of seeing this, fluoro is kind of your middle of the road line for just about every category. Most all categories, your mono kind of falls on the bottom side of all those categories, and your braid kind of hits the top of all those categories, including price. Right. So smaller diameter, but heavier line. Let's see. Terry Gear says, I really like the Suffix 832 braid, 6-pound test, 2-pound diameter, very strong line. I've caught 10-pound drum on it, crappie fishing. Braided line, guys. I caught a paddlefish last weekend. Thought my camera was rolling, and it wasn't. But I literally hung him in the back. A big paddlefish, thought I was hung, picked the rod up, held the rod straight out the back of the boat, put my hand on the bezel, and thought, well, I'll hold it until the boat breaks it, and the boat never broke it. I went 30 feet and the boat never broke it, and there was never any line that stripped out. And I was like, why is it not breaking? So I was like, maybe I'm dragging a tree or something. So I picked the rod tip up, kind of held it up in the air a little bit. And about that time I felt, I was like, oh, crap, that's a big old fish. What is that? There's a big old paddlefish. So that was pretty cool. I wish I would have got it on video. I was a little bummed out that I didn't get it on video. But it was pretty neat to catch it and to hang it anyway. But, yeah, it was an ugly-looking sucker too. Those things are ugly. But nonetheless, back to line. So the Suffix braid, Terry, is a good braid too. Like I said, I have not found a braid yet, not Fireline, Suffix, Bonehead, Canine. I mean, I've tried a lot of them. I actually have a couple more around here somewhere that I can't remember. A couple that I had recommended to me for casting, and they just, I haven't found one that was better than the other. Does that make sense as far as that one casting, I guess, flaw? And I'm not even going to call it a flaw. I'm just going to call it a hiccup, right? So I hadn't found one that's any smoother than another. Steven says, go smash that like button when you get a chance. Thank you, Steven. I appreciate it, buddy. If you guys don't care, smash that like button. Let everybody know it's good content. You like what's going on with Wired for Crappie. Thank you, Steven, for reminding me. Jamie Nelson says, switch to 15-pound braid with 6-foot, 6-pound fluorocarbon leader. Really like the combo. You guys are messing me all up with these pound signs. Oh, my gosh. Reading these comments is tough. I'm going to get one wrong here in a minute. I guarantee it. All right. So yeah. So there's been this shift. Let's talk about the shift. Let's look a little bit more at some of the comments here, and then we'll talk about the shift. How much filler line do you put on your spool, or do you use filler line? Very good question, Addicted to Hunting. Very, very good question. So there will always be a place for mono in my life. Always. Okay. Shooting ducks is one place. Trolling is another. And backfilling a reel is absolutely a place for mono for me. Okay. Again, it's an $8 spool line for 9,000 feet. I do not spool my rods, my reels, with 100% braid. There's no need in it. Okay. I always put backer on that spool. It is mono. It is high vis. It is this right here. It is 4-pound test vicious every time I back my spool. Why do I back with 4-pound test? I like to back with 4-pound test because it lays on the spool smooth. You get up there to, somebody says, well, why don't you can get that in a 10-pound? Back it with 10-pound. Yeah, but 10-pound doesn't coil on that spool as well and as smooth and as flush as a 4-pound test. So I can back that spool with 4-pound test. It'll lay in there tight. It'll spool on there good. And then I put about a half of a spool, maybe a third of a spool. 2/3 of the spool will be mono, and then a third of the spool will be my braid. That is a way you can save money on your braided line, guys. Okay. You don't have to. I have literally fished with a rod that was spooled with braid for 6 months and not ever run out of braid or changed it, because you will very, 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 very rarely ever break that braided line. The most line that you'll lose is when you tie your leader on. You'll lose, now you'll break your leaders off it, but you will very rarely break that braid. Every once in a while you will, but it's very, very rare. For you guys that fish a lot of trees and you guys may be breaking it a little bit, but generally you'll break it at the knot. You won't break it up the line like mono. Mono, you may break 20 feet off of it. Braid, you won't do that. So you can literally get a very, very long lifespan out of braided line, and there's no sense in spooling the whole reel, because you'll want to re-spool it before you ever use it all, ever. It would dry rot before you used it all. So very good question. I do back every reel with mono. Daryl says, have you used reaction tackle braid? Seems to be much cheaper than all the rest. Actually, I have, and it is cheaper. You're right. Again, haven't seen a whole lot of difference in it. I do know that I like the colors. Now, last I looked, I don't think there's an orange in the reaction tackle, but then there may be now. I don't know. But I do prefer the bonehead, and just for the color, I like that orange. I do have yellow high vis, but I like the orange. And I'll tell you another reason I like the orange is because when I'm in a tournament situation, or I'm just in a hurry, I can look down on my deck and I can tell the difference in my mono rod and my braided rod. Okay. So I do like to keep that separate, just so that I can tell the difference in the hurry. Jody Gosway says, okay, so I miss a little bit of the show here. What is the best braided line for crappie? I'm not going to say the best. I'm just going to say what I use the most, and that is the Bonehead B Power braid. It is a 15 or a 12 pound, 15. It is a 12-pound braid, and it is smaller than a 4-pound mono. So I like it. I have not had any issues with it, and it seems to be comparable to every other braid out there. So that is what I use, just for because obviously I'm affiliated with Bonehead. I love their baits, and I love their braided line too. So, and I love the color. So I've been running that. I won't say it's the best, but I'll say it's what I run the most. let's see. Scott says, I remember that. That was on the chick. Remember what? What do you remember? Yeah. That's right. The float and fly, the float and fly story. Yeah, that was on Chickamauga. So of course, my partner, hey, he's not shy. He tells everybody at the boat ramp every time. He's like, I swear, I'm gonna kill Matt. I'm gonna kill him. I had to tell him when to jerk. I had to tell him when to jerk. He didn't even know when. He didn't even know when his fish was biting. I had to tell him when to jerk. I didn't have my glasses. I couldn't see nothing. I mean, when the float rises up a quarter of an inch in the water, my gosh, I mean, when it's 30 feet out there without glasses on, Darren's standing over there going, jerk, jerk, jerk. Okay. It's pretty funny. It's pretty comical. Andrew says something. Let's see. Ashley Coffee, I was looking into that this week. A lot of reviews say the line breaks at the knot and it slips out of the knot too because it's so slick. Oh, Ardent Gliss. I've never tried it, but that turned me off. Scott can probably answer something to that. Yeah, if they were talking about Gliss. I like Ardent Gliss too. Castaway better than braid, but ravels out pretty easy, and the smaller pound tests are hard to keep tied to a leader, so slick. So yeah, maybe there's a downfall to it. I'll see if I can't get some in, or actually I have some. I need to tie it up on a rod and use it. See if I can't use it a little bit. Jimmy says, I use straight 8-pound braid, no leader. Can you tell a difference with the crappie bite on a clear leader versus straight braid? Yes, Jimmy, I can. And I have actually had days where Darren and I are standing side by side in the boat and I'm using a leader and he's not. And literally, I mean, we're watching the same live scope, casting the same fish, and I'm catching them every cast, and he's not, using the same bait, same jig head, same everything. So I think there has been times where it made a difference. But there again, guys, I mean, can we really say it made a difference? I don't know. I like to think that it does. I like to know in my mind that when that line is down there, it's invisible. I mean, that does something for my mind. I fished with straight braid too when I went to braid, and I caught fish plenty. But it's something about that added knowledge or that added know that I have that says that line is invisible. That fish doesn't know I'm down there. So for me, it does something. If anything else, it's a confidence booster for me. So. Crappie Kev, have you tried NanoFill? Yes. I've not personally tried NanoFill, but my partner did use NanoFill, and there were pros and cons to NanoFill. NanoFill, he did like the NanoFill. There was it casted well. It performed well. It was very sensitive. But the one thing he did mention is that it frayed very easily. The NanoFill would fray. When he was fishing around any kind of structure, he would notice that he could take his line and, you know, he could take his line and he could see it. Okay. You could see the frays in it and the nicks in it, and you could run your fingers down it and you could just feel it. It was very easy to nick. And for that reason, he gave it up because he broke off several fish with it. And he thought that it was due to those nicks. He said, man, he said it was like just sandpaper. He said you could run your finger down the line. It just felt like sandpaper all the way down it. So he said that it did nick very easy. Addicted to hunting. Do the bigger spools of mono have issues when the line as you get closer to the end of the spool? Are there downsides to larger spools? The line seems to get rough as you get to the end of the spool. It will get memory. Mono has more memory than any other line. So the closer you get to the center of the spool, yes, it is going to show more memory. But keep in mind, once you put it on your reel, it's going to have a totally different memory. It's going to adapt a different memory. Okay. So when you take it off this and put it on your spool, it's going to change. Now, you ever wonder why tournament fishermen re-spool the night before a tournament? Well, the reason is because it doesn't have time to re-memory. It doesn't have as much time for memory to set into that line. So a lot of guys will actually re-spool the night before a tournament with mono if they're fishing with mono, because again, that line will almost pop off the reel. You get more of cast when that line does not have as much memory in it, and it actually kind of jumps off that reel because it's just like, what am I doing? So that's why a lot of guys that fish mono all the time re-spool before every tournament. But no, I mean, you will notice that it gets addicted. You will notice that it gets the coils get tighter and tighter as you get closer to the spool. But I wouldn't say a bigger spool makes any difference. No, because once you put it on your rod and it sits there for 2 weeks, it's gonna adapt to your spool. So. Heidi Clark, here's a good question from Heidi. Because braid does not give, are poles made to take that pressure and not snap, or is that where drag comes in? So very, very good question. That was actually going to be my next topic. So thank you, Heidi, for taking us into that. As far as equipment is concerned, I have noticed a difference, okay? I used to get, you guys know, I love an ACC crappie stick, a 6 to 6.5 footer. That's my bread and butter, 6 to 6.5 footer. I love. Now I have been like in the 10 footer recently too, but the 6 to 6.5 is where my wheelhouse is. Okay. I like a Pflueger Try-On size 25 reel on those rods. I would get anywhere from 2 years to 3 years on a Pflueger Try-On size 25 with mono. Okay. Since I switched to braid, now I'm going to leave this one out because it's kind of in the middle again. Okay. We're going to leave fluoro out of this conversation. But since I have switched over to braid, I have noticed that it is a lot harder on my equipment. It's harder on my rods. It's harder on my reels for certain. It's harder on my reels than mono ever was. So I am cutting into my reels lifespan with braided line. And I'll tell you where it gets those reels is, hang on a minute. I'll show you, Heidi. We're going to take the top of this rod off so that I don't break it in the ceiling. Okay. All right. So where it gets, this has braid on it, as you guys can tell, my orange bonehead, and it's all tangled up. My son has had this, obviously. And it's all under the spool. Hey, there we go. All right, so where it gets these reels is where this joint is right here. Okay. This joint in this reel takes every bit of that abrupt stop when you set the hook. Okay. So that takes the brunt of every blow when you set the hook. All right. And it does wear on that arm. It does. And I've noticed that over time, these get weak. Okay. Now, is that a flaw in the reel? I don't think so, because I've used Pflueger Try-Ons for years. I don't believe it's a flaw in the reel. I think it's just there's zero stretch, zero. And that's another reason that I like a leader, because it gives me a little bit of a buffer. Okay, it gives me a little bit of stretch with that fluoro. I don't want a lot, but it gives me a little stretch. So it does wear on your equipment. Braid will wear on your equipment a little more. Okay. Now let's talk about the leader that I use. This is an 8-pound leader. I use a 6 or an 8. I'm starting to move more towards an 8 than a 6. Okay. Let me tell you why. Because you've got 5 feet of this. You've got 25 feet of braid. Braid's not given. When you set the hook, you need something that can take the shock of setting the hook out of that braid. If you try to tie a 4-pound leader or a 2-pound leader, you will snap it by setting the hook, because when you set the hook with braid, there's an extreme amount of force that is on the end of that line, the hook end. There's an extreme amount of force there, and it will pop your leader if you're not careful. So that is why I've stepped up to an 8-pound, especially on Watts bar fish. I tie an 8-pound leader religiously on Watts bar fish, because those 2+ pounders coming out of Watts bar, when you hit them, you better have something that weighs more than, or that'll handle more than they weigh, and take the shock. Okay. So that's kind of how I set that up. And very good question, Heidi. It will wear more on your equipment. It will. John C. says he enjoys a mix. Power Pro Slick 10, 8+ feet of P-line, fluoro or fluoro clear, connect with FG knot. So, there again, I mean, there's been a huge change in lines and in crappie fishing over the last couple years. I think everybody would agree with that. There's a lot more braid hitting reels now for crappie than there ever was. And a lot of that is because, live scope. A lot of that is because guys are fishing a lot different now. I think the Midwest guys have used braid for a long time, because a lot of those guys, those Midwest guys, the Texas guys, the guys that are fishing standing timber, they've always kind of used braid, I think. But I'm talking East Tennessee, East United States. I mean, a lot of brush fishing, a lot of open water fishing, a lot of docks, a lot of mono that was always used. So, but that's kind of switching, that's kind of changing, and it's kind of cool to see and really to be a part of. So, it's neat how things progress and change. All right, Andy says he likes P-line. P-line's a good line as well. Williams using Power Pro. Do put it in the water for a week to get a lot of the extra color off of it. Yeah, that's another thing. Thank you, William. The braided line will fade with time. If you guys can see, so you can look at this reel right here. So look how bright orange that is, okay, guys? And look at how light orange that is on that spool. So let me put them up there beside one another. And you can't really tell right there. Well, yeah, you can. Too much light on it. But it will change over time. That braided line will fade a little bit. And I've actually got some reels that braid looks white. It just kind of fades out over time. It bleeds. William says, Brad, you can see better on the live scope as well. So yes, guys, if you are fishing with live scope, if you are using a mono or a fluoro, okay, if you're using a monofilament or a fluorocarbon, you will not see those on your live scope screen, okay? If you are using a braided line and you get your transducer just right, you can see the fishing line on your screen, okay? You can actually see it from all the way from the top down to your jig. You can see that fishing line on your screen. So that's another positive for braid if you're using live scope. William, in your professional opinion, can fish see the line color? No. I don't, in my professional opinion, no. Those fish cannot see the line color. Do the fish sometimes feel the line? I wonder. The fish feel a lot more through their lateral line than they see. And I do sometimes wonder if they feel that line cutting through the water. I've seen a lot of weird stuff on live scope over the years with live scope, and I do sometimes wonder if they feel it. So, when you get into these larger diameter of lines, like I know a lot of guys that are using 10 and 12 pound monos, the line diameter is very large on those compared to a 4 pound or a 12 pound braid. Okay. Line diameter is very small on a 12 pound braid, smaller than a 4 pound mono, like we looked at earlier. But when you get on up there in line size and diameter size, I do kind of wonder if they feel that cutting through the water in their lateral line. But as far as color, I hadn't seen a difference. Not crappie, no. I've used pinks, greens, oranges, yellows, and I hadn't seen the difference. No. Jamie, yeah, we talked about this earlier. Using filler on your spool to fill. That way you don't use as much of your braid. I do not use 100 yards of braid on a line. I can tell you that right now, Jamie. I actually only put maybe 80 feet. I put about 80 to 90 feet, and that's about it. That's plenty for me. Like I said, you're not breaking braid off very often, okay? And when you do, you're breaking it at the knot mostly. So, yeah, I don't put that much on. I try to save my money as much as I can. Oh, Reaction Tackle has orange braid now. There you go. Mark bought some last month, he said. Heidi, another reel question. The new reels say made for braid. Does that keep it from digging into the reel? Yes. Mostly when it says made for braid, excuse me. Mostly what they're talking about is this right here. That little bezel right there. See, that's stainless. If you get a reel that does not have a stainless little bezel right there, then braid will cut it. Okay. Some of most of your bait casters have stainless in them, but some of your older reels, they did not have stainless in them. They had, I think it was carbon fibers and plastics and things, and that would definitely get cut by braid. So Heidi, to answer your question, most of the time, the only thing that, what is that? The only thing that they're talking about when they say made it for braided line mostly is that right there is stainless. Okay, that little bezel. Jamie Nelson says braid is more abrasive. It is more abrasive for sure. When you set the hook with mono and you're reeling a fish in, it's just smooth on your rod tips or on your eyes. When you set the hook with braid and you're reeling a fish in, you can hear it rubbing your eyes. It makes a distinct sound. You can tell the guys that fish with braid and the guys that fish with mono because when they set the hook and reel a fish in, pay attention when you're on YouTube next time. you can hear the difference when they're reeling their fish in. Crappie Kev says, I loosen the drag when using braid. Yeah, you know, that's one way to kind of combat the shock, but really you're not. I like to be able to drive the hook home, and I don't want my hook set to slip. Does that make sense? I don't want to take any of the power of my hook set away from the point of the hook. So you can loosen your drag, Kev, but if you do that, so when you set the hook, okay, and that slips, it takes away the force or inch pounds, if you will, from the jig head. All right, and I don't want to do that. I want to be able to drive the hook home. That way I get a good hook set. I put that barb deep enough in that fish that I'll get him in the boat. So you can take some of the shock out. I mean, I'd rather buy reels every year and a half as opposed to every 2.5, and know that I'm going to get that fish in the boat. But that's from a tournament angler's perspective. I mean, I want to make sure that that fish gets over the gunnel in the boat. John C. said, the leader definitely makes a difference in my opinion. My brother would use Maxima mono leader, and I would use a fluoro combo. My hookup ratio would be much higher. So, yeah, I mean, the hookup ratio, I think, with braid is, again, your hookup ratio with mono is going to be on the lower side because it stretches. Fluoro is going to be kind of in the middle again, guys. All right. And then your hookup ratio with braid is probably going to be your highest, just because you can feel everything. And when you set the hook, it's driving it home. Wherever it's laying, it's going home. That's for sure. John C., slightly off topic, with a tandem jig rig, I get a fair failure rate with the overhand loop knot of the top jig. What would be a better knot to reduce that being the failure point? That's the one reason, John, that I don't fish a tandem rig, because there is the opportunity for failure there. You could tie a clinch knot up there, but then your jig's not going to get any kind of, it's not going to be natural. It's not going to be able to your jig's not going to be able to move around natural. The loop knot, the purpose of the loop knot is so that your jig can kind of free float, and it can move around and not be affixed to your line. Man, without taking away action from the jig, there's really not anything you can do. I don't know. I mean, you like I said, you could tie a Palomar knot or something like that up there, and it would be a lot stronger. I would try that and see if it takes away from your catch rate on that top jig. But again, that's why I use one jig, because I just want that one point of quote unquote possible failure. And if I have a lot of failures, there on that one jig, then that would be where I would step up to a 8 or a 10 pound fluorocarbon leader to try to stop that failure. Or in your case, you could even tie the leader on below your top jig. If you were using something like a braid, you could take that top jig, tie that loop knot with braid, and then tie your leader on from there down. So you had the leader from your top jig to your bottom jig, put them 12 to 18 inches apart, and do it that way. That would stop a lot of the failure, because you won't have nearly as much failure out of a loop knot with braided line. George Hamby said, I agree on not loosening my drag. What's up, George, by the way? Hello, how you doing? On not loosening my drag, I've seen too many people miss fish by having the drag set too light. Not trying to pick on anyone, but I do believe that has happened to Davis in a few videos. Yeah, so it's all about that hookup. I've seen way too many fish get off because of a bad hook set. Not necessarily a bad hook set, but because of not a strong hook set. That's the one thing I love the most about braid. When I rear back on that fish, he is stuck. If he hits my jig and I rear back on him, he's there. I mean, he's stuck. That's for sure. So, John C. said, thanks for the answer. I'll give it a go. But yeah, George, I agree. I don't want to loosen my drag and take anything out of the point of that hook. That's just me. All right, so we've went over the 3 lines. Now let's talk a little bit about, you used to see everybody using 4-pound test, 4s and 6s, and that's kind of going away. I mean, I know a lot of different YouTubers, as you guys know, and they always ask me what pound test I use, and I'm like, well, I like my 4-pound mono for this, and this, and they're like, 4-pound? My gosh, I never used 4-pound. There's this thing about, there's a switch in the crappie industry of everybody's going to a heavier line because now we know with live scope that it just doesn't seem to affect fish. You can get away with a heavier line, but there's pros and cons to that as well. Like I said, I swear, I think that some of those fish, especially those skittish fish, I'll learn to talk here in a minute, I promise. They feel that line coming through the water in their lateral line. And another thing that with some of that larger diameter line is you can't shoot docks with it. I mean, that stiff, larger diameter mono, like that 8, 10, 12-pound stuff, shooting docks with that is extremely, extremely difficult. So I don't know if you guys shoot docks. If you do, or if you want to learn or you're looking to try it, do not use an 8, 10, 12, 4 or 6. 6 is about as high as you'll want to go shooting docks. If Scott's on here, he'll probably agree with me. You don't want to go above 6 when you're shooting docks. You want to keep it down there, that small diameter line that spools off easy, that won't get hung in the eyes, that won't have a real high memory content, and you just you'll get better results shooting docks with a 4-pound test. I'm telling you. Get your reel with a big bezel. You want something that's got a big bezel on it. You don't want something with a little tiny bezel. You don't want some little, 500 series reel that's got this little tiny bezel on it. You want something with a good bezel, and spool is what I'm talking about. For those that don't know bezel, spool. You want something with a good size spool on it so that when that line comes off, it doesn't have as much memory like we talked about earlier. And it'll come off there smooth. It'll come off there quick, and you won't lose any distance. Okay. Dr. Jack, what's up, Dr. Jack? He says, I've tied the Palomar knot for the top jig and done. I am experimenting with tying a snap on the top and the jig swings freely. Yeah, you could do that. You can tie a snap on. I've just never been one for snaps. I've never been one for using them. So it'd probably work. I just haven't ever been a fan of snaps. I don't know. It's a mental thing, I think, for me, but I don't know. Daryl, what knot do you use on braid? I like loop knot. Will it hold on braid? Absolutely it will. It is a little bit more cantankerous to tie on braid, Daryl. It can be done, but it's a little bit more cantankerous just because braid doesn't have the same properties as a mono. A mono is nice and slick, and when you go to tie that loop knot in mono, it just kind of just flows through there, and you just pull it tight, and just, you kind of have to be careful with braid. Make sure that when you tie it, when you go around your fingers and you put your jig through and you pull it off, make sure you don't twist it. If you twist it up, when you go to pull it, it just kind of binds up and doesn't really pull well. But if you get it off your fingers smooth and just pull it real nice and slow, make sure everything goes together well, then yes, the loop knot is great on braid. That's all. I mean, that's all I use anymore, guys, is a loop knot. I do not tie a Palomar or a fisherman's knot at all anymore. I use loop knot almost 100% of the time. John C. said, wind and braid will mess with my feeling strikes when I long line. Wind and braid will mess with my feeling strikes when I long line. Does everyone else get the same? When I long line, I generally don't hold my rods. When I long line, again, watch the video Friday. When I long line, I don't hold my rods. They're in rod holders. So I'm not feeling the bite anyway. George Hamby says 6-pound K9 is what I use on my dock shooting. I agree 100% on a bigger bezel. It increases my shooting distance with that bigger spool. It will increase your distance because you don't have as tight of a memory on your line with a bigger spool. Okay. So when it comes off there, your coils in your line aren't hitting your rod tip or hitting your rod eyes as much, so you can carry more distance, more speed, and it also comes off there smoother, comes off the spool smoother, which doesn't decrease your speed with your line coming off. So a larger bezel helps. Don't get too big though. Don't get too carried away. Don't go out there with a saltwater reel. Be like Matt said. Like I said, the Pflueger Trion size 25 is just about perfect in my opinion. The spool on it, for sake of, do I have a quarter? Let's see if I have a quarter. Yep, I got some change in here. What do I got? Hey, there's a quarter. So that'll give you an idea about how big that spool is, maybe, if I can get it to where you guys can see it. So there's a quarter on that spool. The quarter takes up just about the center of it, but it's probably more like a little larger than $50, probably. Just over $50 is how large that bezel is. Okay. Mark says, Matt, per Dr. Jack's comment about the loop knot, can also go to a 3-way barrel swivel, then tie your leader to it with your jig. You can, but it will tangle. You will end up tangling more with a 3-way swivel, because when you tie a leader onto that 3-way, so you got it, you got one up here, one down here, and one over here, and you tie a leader onto that leader will fall. With a jig head, that leader will fall, and a lot of times it'll wrap around your main line and you will get tangled more. So, pros and cons to everything, guys. You just have to figure out what pros outweigh what cons, right? Why are the ACC eyes not ceramic, or are they stainless? Do you know? Yes, they are stainless. ACC eyes are stainless. Can you guys see that? I guess you can. Stainless eyes on ACC, which makes it great for braid because it doesn't cut into it, right? Gary, do you use umbrella rigs for crappie? No, I have bowed out of umbrella rigs for the rest of my life. I will never throw an umbrella rig again. I swear I will not. I'll not throw an umbrella rig or an A rig ever again. I promise you that. So, there was a time where I bass fished when I was younger, and I won't do it again. So, a funny story. My 5-year-old swears up and down that he wants to go bass fishing. He's like, "We're going bass fishing, Dad." I'm like, "No, I want to go fishing, Daddy." I'm like, "Okay, let's go fishing. What do you want to catch?" "Bass." "I want to catch bass, Daddy." He's got the bass fever. I mean, I could bring him in here right now and ask him what do you want to go catch, and he'd be like, "Bass." As a matter of fact, let's test that. Let's test that theory. Let's just see. Wired for Crappie's own son. We're just gonna. But no, to answer your question, I will not throw an umbrella rig because I actually have just wore myself out with taking an umbrella rig and chunking that joker all day, and it is exhausting. So nothing wrong with them at all, Mark or Gary, excuse me. To answer your question, absolutely nothing wrong with an umbrella rig, and it will catch crappie. I mean, you can put some Bobby Garland, or not Bobby Garland, Charlie Brewer sliders or something on them, and you can catch crappie. I mean, you can run an umbrella rig through or across the top of a brush pile, and you can catch fish on it. I mean, there's no doubt about that. But I've just wore myself out on them. Hang on just a second. Let's just test this theory out real quick. I'll be right back. Brantley, come here a minute. No. Brantley, come here, hurry. Come here a minute. Stand right here. Stand right there. All right. Don't move. All right. When we go fishing, what do you want to catch?
Bass.
You want to catch what?
Bass.
Bass? Bass? You want to go bass fishing? Oh, my goodness.
I want to eat a bass.
You want to eat a bass? Oh, man.
I never tried one in years.
You never tried one in years? What about if we go catch one bass and then go crappie fishing? That work?
Yeah.
High five. All right.
Unless we keep him.
Unless we keep him?
Yeah.
Oh, you want to keep it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you. See you. Bye. Love you.
Love you.
Close the door. I don't know what's got into him, guys. I swear, I don't know. I think aliens abducted my son and have made him a bass fisherman. I don't understand it. So, anyway, he wants to go catch a bass. Funny story. He actually caught a bass. We were crappie fishing last year, and he caught about a 4.5 pounder. And the fight was absolutely fun for him. I mean, it was. We were camping last year. Some of you guys have maybe seen it, but we were camping, and he caught about a 4.5 pounder out of a brush pile, and he's been asking me to go bass fishing ever since. So it was a fun fight. All right, let's see. Gary said crappie only here. Yeah, me too. Yeah, me too, Gary. George Hamby, I tie a double uni knot from braid to leader, loop knot on all my jigs. Simple and very effective for me. So I do too. I tie a uni knot from my braid to my leader. That's what I tie. I've always tied a uni knot. That's what I started tying when I started fishing with braid as a uni, and it just stuck. So it's very simple to tie one. Does anybody not know how to tie a uni knot? If not, I'll tie one real quick. If you guys want to see that, let me know. Comment, and I'll pull some braid mono out and we'll tie one. But let's see here. And Jimmy said no silver carp for me. I think he meant green carp. No bass. All right, guys. I'm going to give you guys just a couple more minutes to answer or ask me any more questions. If you guys have any more questions, I think we've pretty much went over everything line. Do you guys have any other questions about line, about the properties of a line, or about, size, color, anything? D-Car said he'd like to see a uni knot, so we'll go ahead and tie a uni knot real quick for him. I'm actually going to use 2 colors of braid. Maybe you guys can see it better. Hang on. Except for I don't have any scissors in here. That's okay. We'll make it work. While I'm getting this ready, guys, don't forget, if you have not subscribed to the channel, we are doing a 10,000 subscriber. I'm doing a 10,000 subscriber giveaway, and we're going to do a weekend fishing trip with me in Tennessee. 2 different lakes. We're going to go 2 different lakes. 1 lake on Saturday, 1 lake on Sunday. And Wired for Crappie will pay for your motel room and for all the fishing. Okay. All you have to do is pay to get down here, pay for your food while you're here, and we're going to go catch some fish. So we're going to choose 1 lucky subscriber. When we hit 10,000, we're going to give that away. We'll get it set up. We're going to film. We're going to put it on the YouTube channel. So you guys will be able to watch that too. It'll be a lot of fun. If you have not subscribed to the channel, please do so. And guys, please share my videos. Please share the channel. Please bring some people to the channel. If we're going to grow, I need you guys out there talking about the channel, telling people about it, asking them to subscribe. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to grow the channel, right? So if you guys would, please help me with that. I appreciate you. All right. So got 2 lines. Got pink braid and got orange braid. So what you do, get your tag ends, okay? So you got 2 tag ends, and you want to take those and you want to lap them over top of one another. So you want 1 tag end pointing one way, 1 tag end pointing the other way. And you want about 12 inches of tag end, okay, off each line. All right, and then you want to grab that right in the middle, okay? So grab it right in the middle. Then you want to pick one of your tag ends, okay? So here's your orange tag end, and you want to make a loop. So you're going to come around and make a loop right like that right there, okay? So there's your loop. Now, you want to take both the lines, the loop that you just made, you want to take the top of that loop and the main line, okay, from the other side of your line, and you want to just take this little tag end that you made with your loop, and you want to wrap it inside. So 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, so I go 4. Then you just pull that tight. All right. Then the way I do it, all right, is I just kind of flip this over because it's easier for me. I'm right-handed. So it's easier for me if I just flip it over. All right, and then you get your other tag end. You make a loop right across your main line, and then you take that tag and you wrap it. 1, 2, 3, 4. You pull that tight. All right, cinch it down. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to pull both the sides of the main line, and those knots will cinch together, okay? So you just take it and just start pulling it. You see those knots getting closer and closer? Those knots are coming together. Till those knots touch. Those knots touch, you will not get that apart, all right? So those 2 knots are together, and you can cut that off. Guys, you can cut that off just as flush as you want. It will not come apart. You can cut them extremely, extremely close, and they will stay just like that. They will not give, all right? I have not had one give yet. Let me say that. So you can cut them off very, very close, and that's why I like it, because I can cut them off very, very close, and if I do reel it through my eyes, you'll never feel it, okay? It'll jump right through your eyes. You'll never know it's in there. So that's how I tie my uni knot. Very simple. It seemed like it was longer there, but I can tie that uni knot in seconds. I mean, I've just done them so many times. I can just take it and flip it over and pull them tight, cut them off, and we're gone. So that's a uni knot. Gary said bass are fun to catch, but bluegill and crappie are better eating. Yes, they are. William C. said, and a loop knot. You want me to tie a loop knot? I can tie a loop knot for you guys if you want me to. Loop knot's pretty easy. All right. Here's how I tie a loop knot. Through the eye, I go about 10 inches. About 10 inches through there. Grab both sides of your line. Take 2 fingers. Hold the jig right in the center of your 2 fingers. And I wrap it. Okay. So I take it and I wrap it 1, 2. So I go around my fingers 2 times. I take this jig and I slide it right in between my 2 fingers. Okay. Pull that loop around the jig. So there's my loops. And then just take both tag end, the main end and the main line and the tag end, and just start cinching them down real smooth. Like I said, this is braids, so you got to watch yourself. Cinch them down, cinch them down. Right there. There's your loop knot. Okay? Very simple. All right, let's see. Heidi says, thank you for answering my questions. You're welcome, Heidi, as always. Thank you for asking the questions, Heidi, because if you didn't ask them, I wouldn't be able to answer them. George said, thanks for all the help and information as always. You're welcome, George. Thanks for being here, buddy. William says, thank you for a great evening, sir. Learned a lot. That's good. I'm glad. All right, guys. We're going to say see you later. Been on for about 1 hour and 42 minutes now, so we're going to call it tonight. I appreciate you guys for joining me. I appreciate you guys listening to me talk about fishing line. But hopefully, guys, that helps you all. Hang on one second. Here's a good question that I did not answer. What is the difference between 4-strand and 8-strand braid? Just like it sounds. It's how many strands are in that braid. How many strands make up that braid? So braided line has individual strands in it. And 8 strands has 8 strands. 4 strands has 4 strands. I mean, it's just like it sounds. The difference in that is the diameter. Your diameter is going to be different. So if you have a 4-strand braid, you're going to have a smaller diameter than an 8-strand braid. But typically your 4-strand braids are not going to be as heavy as far as poundage. So the bonehead is, I believe, it's on the box, maybe. Where is it? I want to say it's an 8-strand braid, but I could be wrong. It's not on the box. I don't know. I think it's an 8-strand braid, if I remember correctly. The bonehead is. So, Jamie says good night. Good night, Jamie. Good night to the Wired fam. All right, guys. Appreciate y'all watching again. As always, God bless. Watch out for the video this week. It's going to be a good one. I really was excited to do it, so it's going to be a very good video. And we will catch you guys next week at same time, same place, 9 o'clock next Wednesday night. We'll have some more interesting stuff to talk about. And I appreciate you guys again. We'll see you later.